Well, Broadway fans, after some Tony nominations for Falsettos and An American in Paris, this actor is now a three-time Tony nominee for his turn in Lanford Wilson's Burn This. I'm Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby, and with me is Brandon Uranowitz. Congratulations on a very well-deserved nomination,
Thank you
Brandon.
so much.
Um, I want to know, when you first got involved in this, was it a normal audition, or how'd you get involved with this project?
No. It was very weird. This was a first for me. Sometimes in the theater world, when either a producer or a director or even an actor wants a project to get off the ground that they're interested in doing, they'll just do like a very small table read um, in a rehearsal studio around a table with other actors and maybe a couple of producers, the playwright, if he or she is still alive. Um, and that's sort of what happened here. I got an email from my agent asking if I would like to take part in a small table read of Burn This um, for the Lanford Wilson estate and for Michael Mayer and a couple of producers to read the role of Larry, with Adam in the role of Pale and Carrie in the role of Anna. Um, and when I got the email, I just sort of assumed that like some other celebrity was attached to the project and just couldn't make this particular table read. And so I was more than happy to just kind of sink my teeth into the play and into the character for the day. Because that rarely happens that you get to do that kind of thing with that caliber of talent in a room ever. So I was just excited to do that. And I did. And I guess my assumptions were wrong. And the next day they called and offered me the production, but this was last year. So um, there was a good like 8 or 9 months before we even started rehearsals.
Yeah. And I was surprised because I've seen you in a lot of things. This is, I believe, your sixth Broadway outing.
Hmm.
And when I went through your resume, I realized you have never been in a play on Broadway. This was your first
This
play.
was my first play on Broadway. Yeah.
Yeah. And was there a conscious choice to be on the lookout for a more dramatic role?
That has always been at the forefront for me. I mean, when I was at NYU, I was not there for musical theater. I was there for acting. I was in the Meisner studio and then the classical studio. So I spent my entire college career doing plays, and that's sort of where I thought I saw my career going. But as luck would have it, I ended up being cast in the only musical I had auditioned for in college. Um, uh, for the main stage musical, and an agent saw me in it and started working with me. And so, you know, any actor will tell you this is a numbers game. So if you can sing and dance, I mean, I'm a solid mover, like that's where it ends. But if you can sing and dance and act, like your numbers, the odds of booking a job will increase. So yeah, I started working with an agent that was sending me out for a lot of musicals, and that's sort of where my career ended up going. But it's never really where I saw it going in the first place. So, sorry, that's my air conditioner. Um, yeah, so but I was thrilled to finally get. I mean, I got to do some plays regionally
Mhm.
over the years, which was fantastic. Um, but yeah, this is the first time on Broadway.
And this is, it's a classic Linford Wilson piece that's been read and performed many, many times. When you read it, what was the first thing that drew you to Larry?
I mean, it's probably what anybody gets drawn to Larry for initially is his humor and his wit. It's just razor sharp and like stunningly intelligent. Um, but the more I read it and the more that I saw what this humor functioned as for Larry, um, I could just very much relate to him and the way he navigates the world, especially as a gay man, just trying to survive and get through the day, uh, and be acknowledged for something other than your sexual preference. You know, and that was something that it's sort of what got me through high school and my childhood. I was, the class clown. I was the funny one. Um, but it was a means of survival, and it was sort of grounded in something a little bit darker than what it feels like on the surface, or what it appears to be on the surface. And that's what I love about him. And you know, something that he's taught me is good communication and putting your own grievances aside and your own grief literally to the side, so that you can take care of the people around you, because when you help others, you're helping yourself. And sort of when you get on the other side of that relationship with people, you're a better person, and you have more self-love too, I think. So that's something that he's taught me.
Yeah, and there's, you know, this play is sort of a piece of its time. Was written in the late '80s, and I think there were some people who thought when they heard this was being revived, they thought, "Oh, I wonder what is happening with Larry," because I think people remember him as, you know, back then being played more of like the gay sidekick trope,
Yeah.
you know, there to support the straight people's romantic interests. So I'm curious, because I didn't see that at all in this production.
Good.
And so I'm wondering how you sort of confronted that legacy it carries.
Well, yeah, that's sort of the easy trap to fall into when you read something from that era, where there's, you know, a gay sidekick who's there as the comic relief. I mean, when it was written in the '80s, that was not necessarily a trope that audiences were used to or familiar with. So I think it was a novelty for them, and very exciting for them to see a gay man on stage living out and proud, and making them laugh, and just being like this lovable guy. But now in 2019, we've got Will and Grace, we've got Modern Family. I mean, like, the list goes on and on, which is fantastic, because we have made a place for ourselves in the canon, I guess. And I always wanted to honor his function as a comedian of sorts, because, like, that's how Lanford wrote him. Those are the lines. And you know, I can't completely ignore what his initial function was in the play, but at the same time, I didn't want to play that trope or that stereotype, because at the end of the day, this is also a man with blood running through his veins like everyone else on stage, who's also going through a grieving period. And, you know, when you think about it, it's 1987, so he's not just grieving for the loss of his good friend like he is with Anna. His entire community around him is disappearing. So there's that undercurrent too of the AIDS crisis, like, sort of running through the play. And I mean, if you want to look even deeper into it, I guess a lot of the play's death and grief could be a metaphor for that. But what's on the surface is a man coping with a lot of loss in his life, and dealing with a lot of grief. So if I could ground the humor in that reality, I felt like I could bring a real flesh and blood person to the stage. And that was my goal from the get-go.
Yeah. And speaking of you talked about making space for ourselves. In your Tony Awards category, in the featured actor in a play category, there are 3 out gay men playing queer roles on Broadway,
Yep.
Which is pretty amazing.
It's very
have you had the chance to talk to Gideon and Robin?
We haven't seen a whole lot of each other yet. All of the 65,000 luncheons that we have over the next month have not really started yet. But yes, that is something I am fully aware of, and I'm sure they are as well. It's very exciting, because it's also just such a diverse selection of characters.
Around the world in 80 days. This is your call to stage,
sorry.
please. All cast to stage.
Speaker's going on. Ignore that.
Wait, where are you?
I have a stage speaker happening. Sorry about that.
That was hilarious. Was that a place that's called?
Yeah, just a place is called.
Yeah, okay. Perfect. Absolutely.
Yeah, this is why we're having a Broadway chat. It's
Absolutely.
Live theater.
Hell yeah. No, what's exciting to me is that there's such a diverse group of characters too. Like, the characters that we're playing are very different from one another as well, and have completely different experiences. So it's thrilling to me to see not just gay people represented in the category, but sort of in the variety of, you know, the human race is a very diverse and, you know, multicolored fabric, and I feel like we are sort of representing that in the gay community in this category, and I think that's really exciting. I'm excited to talk to them about it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can't wait to hear what that is like. And I also wanted to talk to you about kind of your work with Carrie, because so much of this play is about, you know, the relationship between Carrie Russell and Adam Driver, but your character's relationship with her really is such a focal point, and it feels genuine. It doesn't ever feel like you're the gay accessory at all. So what was it like working with her?
I mean, it was just like one of the easy, it was so unbelievably easy from day one. Carrie is just, she's just like such a beacon of light wherever she goes, and she leaves all of her shit at the door, and walks into the rehearsal room ready to work, and leads with kindness at every turn, and is just like so open to learn. I mean, you know, this is a very new experience for her, so she is so unbelievably open to learning new things and putting one foot in front of the other and figuring out how she functions in this new medium, and never leads with ego. So it was just kind of a dream, because she's one of the easiest people to talk to, and it just made our chemistry sort of very natural and organic. And I don't have to force anything with her. You know, these characters have such a rich history with each other. And although I've only known Carrie for a very short period of time, you know, it does feel like we've lived a very rich historical like life together as friends. It's very strange. I had a very similar experience working with Stephanie Block on Falsettos. You know, Stephanie and I met for the first time at a work session when I was auditioning for the show. She had already been cast, and like, you know, we sang "Making a Home" a couple of times in the audition room. And as soon as I walked in the room, we just kind of fell madly in love with each other. So it's a very similar thing with Carrie. She made my job very easy.
And now you and Stephanie are both nominated again this year.
I love so many friends this year.
Yeah.
It's exciting. It's a very exciting year to be able to go through this wild time with some really, really close friends.
Mm-hmm. I also wanted to ask you about sort of trying to, without spoil things for people who haven't seen it,
Mm-hmm.
but your last scene of the play with David Furr is one of my favorites. I think it was just so well done that I almost wanted the play to end right there. And their characters are sort of scattered in a way, and I think it was played very beautifully. And I just would like you to walk through what it's like to play that moment and how you think maybe it plays differently, and does it play differently, you think, for today's audiences versus when Burn This was first premiering?
Let me go back. I mean, that scene is my hands down my favorite scene in the play. You know, a lot of the stuff I get to do earlier is really fun. I love being funny and witty and dry, but that final scene is really the only time in the play where Larry's heart sort of starts to expose itself a little bit. And that's really exciting for me. And I think it's exciting for an audience, because so much of what's come before has been defensive a little bit. And he lets his guard down for the first time. And what I love about Larry and what I love about playing Larry in this play as a whole is that he sort of stands as the pillar of rational thinking and of grounded truthfulness. And everybody sort of swirls around him. Like everybody sort of, I mean, Adam Driver is just this hurricane that comes in and sort of just fucks everything up. And Anna is there trying to figure out her life. And she always wears her heart on her sleeve. So I feel like I stand there to, you know, tether people back to earth and bring them back to reality. And in that scene with David Furr, he sort of gets pushed off balance for the first time, which is a very exciting and fun thing to play, especially when for 2.5 hours I've been playing something so solid and grounded. And you know, it's interesting. I don't know that I can speak to how that scene played in the 80s versus how it plays now. But what I hope is that all of that stuff that happens before that I was just talking about being that grounded force within the play, and all of the stuff I was talking about before about him being a real flesh and blood person, is more palatable to audiences now, and therefore more heartbreaking when you see him fall off guard in that second scene. I'm not sure how palatable this character was as a person, and a human, as opposed to like an object and a sidekick and a trope in the 80s. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that once you saw him expose his feelings and his heart in that last scene, that it really landed as much as I hope it does today, because today I would venture to say that the majority of people out there know somebody who is gay and out and living truthfully and authentically. Back in the 80s, you may have that number of people probably was exactly the same, but those people were not necessarily out, and they didn't necessarily know who they were and what their truth was. So I hope that now that we are not just tolerated, we are accepted and equal, that seeing a gay man fall off his guard like that can be touching and heartbreaking and moving more than it could have been maybe then.
Yeah, I hope so.
I hope so. I think so. I think so.
I think so too. And this project, I should mention, Burn This, even though you have this incredible Tony nomination and playing this show 8 shows a week, you're also sort of on a huge hot streak right now, at least to my eyes, because you stepped into the Band's Visit, Best Musical winner. You are in Fosse Verdon. You had an arc in Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Has this felt like a nonstop whirlwind to you?
A little bit. And I'm just trying to take it all in and savor it, because everything in theater and in film and TV, all of it, everything that we do is temporary and fleeting. So I'm just kind of trying to be grateful. And but I'm also somebody that, I mean, just ask my boyfriend and all of my friends, but like when I'm involved in a project, I sort of give everything I have to it and disappear. And when I'm there and when I'm in it, I'm always also thinking about what's coming next.
Mm-hmm.
So I am aware that things are going well at the moment, and I'm working, which I'm very, very grateful for. But I'm also like just acutely aware of the fact that there is a distinct possibility that at any second I could be unemployed for a very long swath of time. Yeah. But I'm loving it, and I have loved the projects that I've gotten to do. I feel unbelievably lucky. The Band's Visit was just the most magical, beautiful experience. I have not a single negative thing to say about it, not one. Same with Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, same with Fosse Verdon. I'm very lucky.
Very lucky. Well, with this lucky Tony nomination, before I let you go, this is your third time with this whole experience. Is there anything about the process, now that you've been through it before, that feels different now than it did like for your first one?
Yeah, the first one was so unbelievably exciting because I had 0.00 expectations around it. I actually thought the opposite. I sort of like protected myself from the whole thing because it was sort of the first time I was actually really eligible and there was like buzz around the show. but I was really sort of still just getting started. Nobody in the community really knew who I was. And while it was very exciting and new to me, and I felt like totally out, like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, it was still like a little bit scary, and I felt a little bit, I've never felt unwelcome by the community. They're always there with open arms, but I did feel unfamiliar. Like I had just like I was a new student at school, you know, which is scary and exciting, but like a little bit fun. But right now, this time, to have so many friends nominated alongside me, to have so many people who have come to see the show, and to feel, this is the first time I really feel like I have my feet planted solidly in the community, and I feel like I'm part of it. And that's really like I finally feel like I've made it, honestly, even though I guess, you know, you could, sure, it's the third time, but all of these moments for me are about the community. The award show itself is about celebrating the community and the season. And it just feels incredible to feel like I am in this community and people know my work and know who I am. Because that specifically is sort of all I've wanted since I was a kid, besides being on stage, which, you know, nothing can compare to that feeling, but feeling like a member of the Broadway community. I finally feel that with this one, and it's it makes it a lot easier a little for me.
Well, that sounds great. We'll cross our fingers for you for Tony night. Everyone watching at home, make sure you subscribe to Gold Derby and keep in touch with all of our Broadway updates. Brandon, thanks so much. Maybe third time will be the charm.
Who knows? As far as I'm concerned, I've already won. This season was remarkable, so I'm just happy to be a part of it, truly. Thank you, though.
Well, thank you. It was great to meet you.
You too.